Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. Chapter 12, Out of Your Faith is Your Fortune, is Crucifixion and Resurrection. An awesome chapter that's really, I believe, kind of about transformation, but then also a very strange chapter. I kind of feel like, after reading it a couple times and doing a little digging into some other stuff, I really do feel like this is probably a chapter where Goddard is attempting to really get into kind of the occult teachings that he went through. And I know occult's kind of a bad word. I don't know how else to say it, but it's kind of those outlying understandings and knowledge pieces that are out there, Wiccan and things like that. There's just these things you can learn about, right? And when you start to get into some of those, you start to understand some of what he's talking about in this particular chapter. Now, this is speaking about Easter. We just did the show on Christmas. That was the chapter before this, so it worked out great timing-wise. But now he's jumping straight to Easter. And in his words, you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. Now, one thing that's interesting about Easter, and he gets into this as well, is it ties into the Spring Equinox. So it has to do with, when the full moon in Aries, when the sun crosses the equator and it starts to actually, springtime starts to become warm in the northern hemisphere. It's like the chance for the dark of night to go away. So it's that resurrection. Now, it also ties into a number of stories that date way back before Christianity. Way back before Christianity. So a lot of people suspect that maybe the Christians borrowed these dates because it is odd that it's a fluctuating date. If it was someone's death, you would remember the exact date, just like December 25th is Christmas always, right? It's a very specific day. This one's not. This date floats, which is very interesting. So it can't necessarily be an anniversary because anniversaries would be on the same day. It's not. So it's something different entirely. What? Who knows? I don't know. But it dates back, if you look at, Sumerian goddess Inanna or Ishtar, she was hung naked on a stake and was subsequently resurrected and ascended from the underworld. One of the oldest resurrection myths is the Egyptian Horus, who coincidentally was born on December 25th. Horus and his damaged eye became symbols of life and rebirth. There was Mithras, who was born on what we now call Christmas Day, and his followers celebrated the Spring Equinox. Even as late as the 4th century AD, the soul Invictus, associated with Mithras, was the last great pagan cult the church had to overcome. So these stories have been out there for a very long time. I feel like Goddard's kind of getting into some of the deeper stuff that I know he studied. He doesn't talk about it. And back in the 50s and 60s, being very rooted in religion and kind of the only real safe way to talk about this crazy stuff, because at the time it kind of was, I think this is one of those places where he sneaks in a little bit of that knowledge from long ago. So anyway, chapter 12. I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. This is John chapter 11, verse 25. The mystery of the crucifixion and the resurrection is so interwoven that to be fully understood, the two must be explained together, for one determines the other. This mystery is symbolized on earth in the rituals of Good Friday and Easter. You have observed that the anniversary of this cosmic event, announced every year by the church, is not a fixed date, as are the other anniversaries marking births and deaths, but that this day changes from year to year, falling anywhere from the 22nd day of March to the 25th day of April. The day of resurrection is determined in this manner. The first Sunday after the full moon in Aries is celebrated as Easter. Aries begins on the 21st day of March and ends approximately on the 19th day of April. The sun's entry into Aries marks the beginning of spring. The moon in its monthly transit around the earth will form sometime between the 21st and April 25th, and opposition to the sun, which opposition is called a full moon. The first Sunday after this phenomenon of the heavens occurs is celebrated as Easter. The Friday preceding this day is observed as Good Friday. This movable date should tell the observant, one, to look for some interpretation other than the one commonly accepted. These days do not mark the anniversaries of the death and resurrection of an individual who lived on earth. Seen from the earth, the sun in its northern passage appears at the spring season of the year to cross the imaginary line man calls the equator. So it is said by the mystic to be the crossified or crucified that man might live. It is significant that soon after this event takes place, all nature begins to arise or resurrect itself from its long winter sleep. Therefore, it may be concluded that this disturbance of nature and this season of the year is due directly to this crossing. Thus, it is believed that the sun must shed its blood on the Passover, crossing over the line. A lot of these names are kind of interesting when Goddard brings them up in this way, isn't it? That's what I thought anyways, the Passover. We've called it that so many times, but that also kind of means crossing over that line. Or the crucifix, the cross, the Southern Cross. We've got all these very interesting terms that we've just kind of taken and tied them to something else, but I think they were existing terms that got repurposed, if you will. And I think Goddard's sort of sharing that with us. That's my speculation. We'll see. If these days marked the death and resurrection of a man, they would be fixed so that they would fall on the same date every year, as all historical events are fixed. But obviously, this is not the case. These dates were not intended to mark the anniversaries of the death and resurrection of Jesus, the man. The scriptures are philosophical dramas and will revert their meanings only as they are interpreted psychologically. These dates are adjusted to coincide with the cosmic change which occurs at this time of year, marking the death of the old year and the beginning or resurrecting of a new year or spring. These dates do symbolize the death and resurrection of the Lord, but this Lord is not a man. It is your awareness of being. It is recorded that he gave his life that you might live. I am come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Consciousness slays itself by detaching itself from that which it is conscious of being, so that it may live to that which it desires to be. Spring is the time of year when the millions of seeds, which all winter lay buried in the ground, suddenly spring into visibility that man might live. And because the mystical drama of the crucifixion and resurrection is in the nature of this yearly change, it is celebrated at this spring season of the year, but actually, it is taking place every moment of time. The being who is crucified is your awareness of being. The cross is your conception of yourself. The resurrection is the lifting into visibility of this conception of yourself. Far from being a day of mourning, Good Friday should be a day of rejoicing. For there can be no resurrecting or expression unless there is first a crucifixion or impression. The thing that is resurrected in your case is that which you desire to be. To do this, you must feel yourself to be the thing desired. You must feel, I am the resurrection of life of the desire. I am is the power resurrecting and making alive that which your awareness desires to be. You shall agree on touching anything, and I shall establish it on earth. The two agreeing are your awareness, the consciousness desiring, and the thing desired. Your awareness, or the I am. He's going to connect these two dots. I want to do it a little early. You have the I am. Your consciousness is also agreeing with the thing you desire. When they say the I am that I am, the thing you desire is the that part. So the I am is the consciousness saying, this is what I am, and the that is the thing that you desire to be. When this agreement is attained, the crucifixion is completed. Two have crossed or crucified each other. I am and that. Consciousness and that which you are conscious of being have joined as one. I am now nailed or fixed in the belief that I am this fusion. Jesus, or I am, is nailed upon the cross of that. The nail that binds you upon the cross is the nail of feeling. The mystical union is now consummated, and the result will be the birth of a child or the resurrection of a son, bearing witness of his father. Consciousness is united to that which it is conscious of being. The world of expression is the child confirming this union. The day you cease to be conscious of being that which you are now conscious of being, that day your child or expression shall die and return to the bosom of his father, the faceless and formless awareness. All expression are the results of such mystical union. So the priests are correct when they say that true marriage are made in heaven and can only be solved in heaven. But let me clarify this statement by telling you that heaven is not a locality. It is a state of consciousness. The kingdom of heaven is within you. In heaven, God is touched by that which he is aware of being. Who has touched me? For I perceive virtue has gone out of me. The moment this touching or feeling takes place, there is an offspring or outgoing of me into visibility taking place. The day man feels, I am free, I am wealthy, I am strong. God, I am, is touched or crucified by the qualities or those virtues. The result of such touching or crucifying will be seen in the birth or resurrection of the qualities felt, for man must have visible confirmation of all that he is conscious of being. Now you will know why man or manifestation is always made in the image of God. Your awareness imagines and outpictures all that you are aware of being. I am the Lord, and beside me there is no God. I am the resurrection and the life. You shall become fixed in the belief that you are that which you desire to be. Before you have any visible proof that you are, you will, from the deep conviction which you have felt fixed within you, know that you are. And so, without waiting for the confirmation of your senses, you will cry, "It is finished." Right here, he's talking about when you feel it inside. I'm going to say it again because it's hard to read anyway, but when you feel it inside, when it is something inside of you, it is completed. It is done at that point. A lot of people are like, do I have to keep doing the techniques once I've seen it clearly? No. You've done at that point enough. Can you do more? Sure. Do you have to? No. You've seen it perfectly. As long as you don't sabotage yourself, you don't have to think of it again. If every time you think of it, you doubt yourself, then you're kind of sabotaging yourself. So it's good to kind of put more forward momentum because you keep doing backward momentum. But if you think of it once, feel it, see it, consciously feel it, be it, become it, your consciousness becomes the thing you desire to be. At that point, it is done. Let me read this paragraph one more time after saying all that. I am the Lord, and beside me there is no God. I am the resurrection and the life. You shall become fixed in the belief that you are that which you desire to be. Before you have any visible proof that you are, you will, from deep conviction which you have felt fixed within you, know that you already are. And so, without waiting for the confirmation of your senses, you will cry, "It is finished." You have it already. Then, with a faith born of the knowledge of this changeless law, you will be as one dead and entombed. You will be still and unmoved in your conviction and confident that you will resurrect the qualities that you have fixed and are feeling inside of you. This is great information from Goddard. A weird chapter. The death and resurrection is cool. There's a lot of symbology, kind of a pagan spring holiday also, very northern hemisphere thing. I'm sure the southern hemisphere doesn't feel quite as grand about this day because, right, it's the middle of fall, heading right into the dead of winter. So it's a very North American strange concept. It does symbolically represent what each and every one of us must do to create this thing we desire, this manifestation that we're trying to do. You must essentially kill the version, the consciousness that currently exists. You must crucify that consciousness. You must put it away. You must put it on a cross and nail it up there with feelings. The nails are the feelings, he says. And in so doing, you allow yourself to resurrect a new consciousness, a new way of seeing life and things, and you in relation to this desire you have. Because when you change the consciousness inside yourself, the outside world changes. It never happens the other way. Outside never affects inside. Inside always leads or precedes what is seen on the outside. So if there's some reason you're having a hard time manifesting whatever it is that you're trying to do, your dream is yours to have. And if for some reason you're having a hard time, your way of thinking about it right now needs to be crucified. You need to give it up. You need to let it go. You need to crucify it. And you need to reborn or be reborn into a new consciousness that believes it's possible, that sees it's possible, that knows it's possible, and knows that it is already done because that part of you has felt it. That part of you has experienced it. And that reality is now impressed upon your psyche. And from that, the manifestation will spring forth. Dan, RadioStyle.